We are rewriting the history of financial engineering today.
We are.
I'm looking at the data in front of me, cuneiform translations, Mesopotamian economics, and the conclusion is unsettling. Most people see the ancient world, they see ruins, mythology.
They're missing the signal. They're looking at aesthetics, not architecture.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're stripping away the titles. We're not analyzing Hammurabi as a Babylonian king.
No, he needs to be viewed as the world's first financial system engineer.
And what was his goal?
To solve the single biggest problem in any economy, the fragility of human trust.
How?
By replacing it, by building a trustless economic algorithm.
That's a huge claim, a trustless algorithm in the Bronze Age. Walk me through the core thesis here.
The thesis is simple. We're looking at a system that's 3,800 years old, yet it mirrors the architecture of Bitcoin with terrifying precision.
So you're not talking about vague similarities?
No, not at all. We are talking about the exact same protocols. Ledger immutability, consensus mechanisms, hard money standards.
So the argument is that the Code of Hammurabi is less a legal text and more a blockchain white paper written in stone.
Precisely. The artifact itself, the 2.25-meter black basalt stele, historians call it art. That's a strategic error.
What is it then?
It's an immutable ledger, and it's a public node.
Right. Let's map this out. We'll deconstruct the hardware, the stele. Then the monetary policy, the silver versus barley rates, and finally the validation protocol in Law Section 7.
And by the end, the conclusion is unavoidable. Bitcoin is simply the Hammurabi protocol running at light speed.
Let's start in the hardware. The network's physical specs. A 2.25-meter pillar of black basalt placed in the Isagilla Temple, the city center. My first question is engineering. Why basalt? Why that specific material?
It's a critical choice. You have to understand the data storage market at the time. The standard was clay.
Clay tablets.
Right. And clay is soft. It's mutable. You can rewrite it. You can destroy it. It's a database. An admin can edit at will.
So if you're building a system of law that's supposed to be permanent,
you can't use clay. Hammurabi chose basalt because it's one of the hardest stones available. It's incredibly difficult to carve, and it's nearly impossible to alter without leaving obvious traces.
Tamper evident.
Exactly. You try to change a law on basalt, you destroy the interface. So the material choice itself is the first security protocol. It ensures permanence.
It ensures immutability.
It does. But then look at the placement. It wasn't hidden in a palace archive. It was in the public square.
Which effectively turns the stele into a public node.
Correct. Think about it. In a tyranny, the law is just whatever the king says it is that morning. It's opaque. By placing this stele in public, Hammurabi decentralized the knowledge of the law.
So any literate citizen could query the node.
They could verify the rules for themselves, independent of the king's whims.
Okay, but I want to push back on the trustless idea. At the very top of the stele, there's a carving. Hammurabi receiving the laws from Shamash, the god of justice. Doesn't that mean the system relies on religious trust?
I see it the other way. I see it as the visual representation of code as law.
Explain that.
The carving shows Hammurabi receiving the laws. He's not inventing them. He's downloading the protocol from a higher authority.
So the implication is?
The implication is that the laws are a divine protocol. Even a king can't alter them. He's just the administrator, not the author. It removes the admin key from the king himself.
And there's security software built into the text, too.
Yes, the epilogue. It contains a specific curse warning future kings that if they try to alter the inscription, the system turns against them. It's a psychological firewall.
An immutable ledger on a public node. Let's move to the software, the monetary policy. The data here is incredibly sharp.
This is where you see the genius of the risk assessment. The code caps interest on silver loans at 20%.
But for barley, for grain, the cap is 33.33%.
Right.
That's a 13.33% spread. That's a massive gap.
Right.
Why is the premium on barley so high?
It's a rational pricing of risk. You have to analyze the assets, barley is, while it's easy money, it's off currency.
What do you mean by that?
It has high holding costs. You need storage. And worse, it rots. Physical depreciation.
Okay.
And crucially, it's subject to massive supply inflation. The harvest comes in, supply spikes, the value drops. It's extremely volatile.
A risky asset.
Exactly. So the lender demands a higher return, 33.33%, to offset that risk.
Now contrast that with silver. Why the lower 20% rate?
Silver is the prototype for hard money. It's durable, it doesn't rot, it's divisible, portable, and most importantly, scarce.
Scarce how?
Babylon is an alluvial plain, mud and water. They had 0 silver mines. You couldn't just dig it up.
It had to be acquired.
Through trade or conquest, acquiring silver required real energy expenditure, a distinct acquisition cost. The king couldn't just print more silver.
This is the ancient equivalent of proof of work.
That's the critical strategic insight. Because the supply is constrained by the energy required to acquire it, it holds its value. Hammurabi pegged his economy's prime rate to an external reality.
He recognized that hard money is a superior store of value.
And a stable collateral. Better asset, lower risk, lower interest rate. The market efficiency is undeniable.
Which brings us to the transaction layer. We have the hardware, the currency, now the validation protocol, Law Section 7. The language is intense. If anyone buys silver or gold from a son or a slave without witnesses or a contract, he is considered a thief and shall be put to death.
Most people read that and just see a barbaric punishment. They stop thinking.
Look, you need to look at the logic.
You do. This is not criminal law. This is a data integrity protocol.
Deconstruct that for us.
Hammurabi is defining a valid transaction block. He requires two things, witnesses and a contract.
And in our terms?
The witnesses are the validator nodes. They provide consensus. The contract, a clay tablet with seals, is the transaction data, the smart contract.
And if you lack those elements, the witnesses or the contract,
the transaction is void, more than void. The system treats you as a malicious actor. The death penalty is the ultimate slashing mechanism.
Slashing as in the penalty for corrupting a blockchain network.
Yes. In modern systems, a bad validator loses their financial stake. In Babylon, the stake was your life.
So a transaction without data verification is treated as an attack on the network itself.
Precisely. He was forcing the shadow economy onto the official ledger. You could not move wealth off-chain. If you move silver without consensus and a hash, the system assumes you're a thief.
It's the birth of the concept that if it isn't on the ledger, it isn't real.
The severity of the protocol secures the entire network. High stakes create high trust.
Okay, so we have a secure hardware layer, a rational monetary policy, and a strict validation protocol. But systems accumulate debt, which brings us to system maintenance, the Masharim edicts.
Right. Any long-term financial system faces deadlock. In the ancient world, it was debt. Compound interest outpaces the real economy.
The math of interest versus the biology of agriculture.
Yes. Grain grows linearly, debt grows exponentially. The labor force ends up in debt slavery, and the state collapses.
A system crash.
So the kings implemented the Masharim, the edicts of grace. The king would proclaim a washing of the tablets. He'd wipe the citizenry's debts to reset the system.
That sounds like a bailout or a default.
It's a system reset, a soft fork. The protocol updates to prevent a chain halt. But here's the nuance most historians miss.
What's that?
Commercial debts were often excluded from these resets.
Wait, why? Why wipe a peasant's debt but keep a merchant's debt?
It shows the sophistication. The king wiped consumer debt to save the social layer, but he protected commercial debt to save the merchant layer, the engine of the economy.
He knew if he wiped the commercial contracts,
international trade would collapse. The hard money lenders, the people bringing in the silver, would exit the market. You can't wipe out your investors.
So he rebooted the OS without deleting the kernel.
Exactly. He understood the difference between a liquidity crisis and a solvency crisis. He had to protect the proof of work.
This level of stability likely explains why the system persisted, which brings us to survivability, to the Lindy effect.
This is essential. Lindy suggests the future life expectancy of a technology is proportional to its current age. The old stays, the new dies.
And the Hammurabi protocol has been running for
3,800 years.
It outlasted the Babylonian Empire itself.
It outlasted the Persians, the Greeks. It influenced Roman law, Islamic law, modern law, the core architecture written contracts, witness validation. It's all still with us.
So why did it survive? Empires fall. Why did this protocol remain?
Because it solved the fundamental problem. It bound centralized power to the rules of the ledger. By declaring code as law, Hammurabi created a system where the rules were predictable.
And predictability creates economic efficiency.
Traders came to Babylon not because they loved the king, but because they knew the protocol. They knew their property rights were secured by the basalt, not by a person.
It protected the weak from the strong as a function of system stability.
He called himself the shepherd of justice. It was a functional title. By protecting the user base, he ensured the network remained decentralized enough to function.
A dead user base produces no yield.
Correct. The Masharim edicts were just user retention strategies.
This brings us to a critical point. We're looking at a 3,800-year-old slab of stone, But we're really looking at a design document for the future of value.
We are, and this is where the strategic insight becomes uncomfortable for the modern investor.
I want you, the listener, to pause here and ask yourself this. Is your wealth recorded on a fragile, centralized database, managed by a human who can make a typo? Or a government that can change the rules on a whim? Or is your wealth etched into the digital basalt of the Bitcoin blockchain?
That is the entire question. The modern financial system is built on clay. It's built on trust me, trust the bank, trust the broker. But we know human trust is a point of failure. Hammurabi knew this in 1750 BC.
He moved from trust to verification.
From clay to basalt. Bitcoin is simply the return to basalt.
And convenience is not security.
Convenience is the enemy of security. Hammurabi sacrificed convenience for stability. We are now in a period where the world is relearning that digital clay is not sufficient for storing real value.
Let's synthesize this, the final takeaway. Hammurabi was the first algorithm engineer.
The lineage is direct. His silver is Bitcoin's scarcity. His steel is the blockchain's immutability.
His witness.
The consensus algorithms, the validators preventing theft. Invalid blocks are rejected. There is no appeal court in Bitcoin, and there is no appeal court in Law Section 7. The rules are absolute.
So when we look at decentralized finance, we're not seeing something new.
No, we are seeing a reversion to the mean, a restoration of the Hammurabi protocol. For centuries, we drifted back to clay, back to easy money. The digital age has simply given us the tools to reconstruct the basalt steel on a global scale.
Bitcoin is not a 21st century invention. It is the 3,800-year-old Hammurabi protocol finally running at the speed of light.
It's the ultimate Lindy effect. The medium changed from stone to silicon, but the architecture is identical because the problem human fallibility has not changed.
Consider where your assets sit. If they rely on human permission, you are betting against 4,000 years of data.
And history suggests the basalt always wins in the end.
This has been The Deep Dive. Think about your ledger.
Verify everything.